Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Both Sterling and Ed tipped me off to a crazy story out of Washington State from Q6 or KHQ.com. Washing a car cost me $5,000. Spokane man says he received a felony charge in the mail for a crime he proved he didn't do, and it arose from him washing his car. Haley Gunther wrote it. Identity theft, of course, is a big problem in this country. You might know somebody's been the target of it, possibly even you. It's typically difficult to investigate, let alone charge someone. But in the case of a stolen card from 2019, deputies had video, they thought, of the person who stole a card. The suspect, however, said it was far from the entire picture because he didn't do it. He says, washing the car cost me $5,000. This is the most humiliating thing in my life. So here's what happened. In March of 2019, the man, whose name is Scott, said he was selling a vehicle, and therefore he washed it a lot. He wanted to keep it clean in an attempt to sell it and get a better price for it. So that ordinary routine errand for Scott that wound up landing him in a courtroom as an accused thief months later. And he said nobody wanted to hear the facts. He first reached out to Help Me Haley, which is, of course, Haley Gunther, at KHQ. He reached out to her in April, and they began looking into the story, reviewing court documents, emails, and most importantly, the video at the center of the case. Now, the video does show him washing his car. The surveillance clip shows Scott purchasing a car wash and then cleaning his vehicle, and that video is all deputies had in an identity theft case. But also, they apparently thought that was all they needed. But Scott says the more you learn about it, the angrier you get. The affidavit of facts used to charge Scott states it all started when a victim's card was stolen from her car around midnight of March 24th, 2019. The victim stated it was used multiple times starting that day into April at several locations in Idaho and Washington. The majority of purchases were for fuel with no surveillance available to identify a suspect. But cameras were rolling at a location where docs state the suspect purchased $2 worth of car wash time on a stolen credit card. The foundation of the case against Scott was $2. And he says, I didn't have anything to do with it because it wasn't him. That's the problem. Docs state the investigator reviewed the report, the bank statement, and the video obtained from the car wash. From that, they got his license plate. And from there, he learned Scott was a registered owner and was able to identify him through a comparison to his driver's license picture. Now, something everyone agrees on is the individual in the video is Scott. But the card you can see him using was his own, which is something he could prove. So he points the amount syncing up with the time spent cleaning, and it was far longer than $2 worth. Sure, you know, the car washes, if you're buying them by time, $2 don't get you much. And so he says if you watch the video of him, it's longer than $2 will get you. He says he also could prove this with his bank statement because his bank statement shows that he used his card that day for more than $2. Instead, he learned about the case through the mail because they mailed him a summons. And then once charges were already filed, that was 7 months after his trip to the car wash. So 7 months later, he gets a thing in the mail saying, you're being charged with a crime based on something you did at a car wash 7 months ago. So he says, I went home in October and had a letter from the prosecutor, and I'm like, what is this? 2 felony counts. That's the first time I found out about it. At no point was I asked questions or able to defend myself during the process. So they never came to him and said, what do you have to say about this? They just looked at the video and said, yep, that's him. That's his license plate. That's the same time the card got used. It must be him. All they had to do was ask him, did you use your card that day? Can you show us a bank statement? So Scott received the summons in October of 2019. His first appearance was set for November 6th. That same day, records confirmed that his attorney emailed the prosecutors, letting them know he could prove that Scott used his own card with bank statements he was able to show them. Records show that Scott's attorney followed up via email multiple times, again stating he had proof his client used his own card. The final email stating this was sent in January. There was nothing to link me to it whatsoever, Scott said. Scott was booked into jail. The man was jailed briefly for this. That's something standard, according to prosecutors, so many people could have stopped this from happening, Scott points out. His time in custody is very quick. He's out the same day, but the trauma from all this, he says, might last a while. I've never felt more alone than when I had to go through this, Scott said. The case dragged on almost until the 1-year mark anniversary of the actual crime. Scott's attorneys were preparing for trial, but finally, prosecutors dropped the case. When they finally looked at the facts, said, oh, turns out we got the wrong guy. Scott fears the likelihood of ever finding out who did it is slim at best. Unfortunately, it makes her ever getting justice unlikely. He said, referring to the woman whose card was stolen. I think about this daily, but I try not to because I have so many emotions. He said, I'm angry. Scott said he just wants his story told. He wants it out there and hopes it leads to change. He said the whole thing caused him to miss work for court hearings, and he lost sleep as he's constantly worrying about this. He said he just doesn't want anyone else to go through the same. This could happen to you. So how did this happen? The most likely explanation is that there was a discrepancy in either the victim's bank statement time or the timestamp reflected on the surveillance video. Scott said he had considered different options to recoup the amount he spent to clear his name and fight the charges, but of course that's almost impossible, if not actually impossible. But apparently he spent $5,000 on this case. Prosecutors told KHQ Monday that while the charges were dropped without prejudice, meaning they could refile them, no evidence linking Smith to this crime has actually surfaced. No evidence linking Scott to this crime has actually surfaced. The statute of limitations for the crime is 3 years, which means that March of 2022, they can't arrest anybody for this. KHQ also reached out to the police to see if it's standard for them to attempt to contact suspects during the investigative process. They were unable to tell us if any attempts were made because they simply passed it to the prosecutor's office and let it work its way through the system. So this is an interesting case, and it reminds me of the case I did not too long ago about the guy who, when he finally got the documents from his rental car company, it proved he couldn't have committed a crime in Michigan, and therefore he was let out of jail. And I had a lot of people go, Steve, his bank statements would prove that he's innocent. Well, no, bank statements don't have down to the minute when something happened. It's usually just a day. And here, it appears that there was timestamps that were wrong, probably on the video, or we don't know. But they clearly say there has to have been an issue here because his bank shows him using the card at the correct time. And the car wash says, well, one card got used around that time, and it was the stolen one. So there's a problem somewhere. So you got to remember that machines aren't perfect. Once in a while, machines make mistakes, usually because people who run them and set them up make mistakes. And so I can tell you, these videos I shoot on a video camera. And right now, I'm speaking into a camera, and there is a card that's recording what I'm saying to you. And I'm going to pop that card out and stick it into a computer and download the files. The date stamp on those files is wrong. It's wrong. And a while back, I set the time on the camera, and I don't know if the battery ran low or something, but the time is off, and the day is off by, I think, 1 day. So if somebody were to find the file that I'm shooting right now, they go, hey, Steve shot this yesterday. No, I didn't. The camera's off. Okay. Once in a while, when I take my watch off for too long, it stops running. I put it back on and don't notice. I'm looking at, whoa, it's 3 a.m. Oh, wait, no. My watch just stopped for a little while and I forgot to check it. So these things happen. But the scary part here is that somebody looked at the video and said, yep, we think that's the guy. And then just simply turned it in. Prosecutor created some paperwork and charges were filed without ever contacting the guy and going, hey, look, we got you on video here. Is this you? And the obvious thing is that he might have a bank statement showing that no, I mean, it is him, but he's using his own card. It's a simple question. So I understand that they might not contact every defendant in every case they have because many defendants are going to say, don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to an attorney. Take the fifth. But this is a strange one because the guy simply went to a car wash, washed his car, and shortly thereafter got hit with criminal charges that cost him $5,000 in attorney fees to get dismissed. And the charges have been dismissed against him without prejudice, which means they can bring him again if they feel like it, but they probably won't. But still, Haley Gunther wrote the story, washing a car cost me $5,000, says Spokane man, who received felony charges in the mail for crimes he proved he did not do. Sterling and Ed both sent it. Thanks a lot, guys. Questions or comments, put them below. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years.